Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome in this 60-minute unscripted .NET entertainment. I'm Frank, your host, and with me I have today two of my co-hosts, Maria and Cam. And I would like to welcome today's guest, Jérôme Laban. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Thanks for bringing that show in early in the morning. It's difficult for some of us.
For some of us,
I'm not a morning person, so. But I think most of our crew is on the East Coast or Central Time, so I think it's good.
Yeah, weather is nice today. Everything is great.
Yes, it is great here.
Yeah. So, Jérôme, what do you have for us today?
So today, I'm the CTO of Uno Platform. So I'm here to talk about Uno Platform and what it does, where it comes from, what kind of feature it provides, what environments it runs, and things like that. So lots of pieces that we can discuss. And if there are people that are on the stream and want to ask questions, we can definitely ask them as we go. I have some demos that should be interesting. I'll be doing most of it on Linux because people have been interested in running for Linux, and I think that should be fun. I have a little echo. I think it's maybe when I talk too loud, it shows up. So I'll try to talk a bit less loud.
So we mute Frank and then we do a test again.
Yeah, that we can do. Yeah. Well, if I'm talking loud and it doesn't go out, so probably coming from Frank.
It might have been me. I'm not using headphones either, so I'm going to mute, and Frank and I will live on in ignorant bliss as to which one of us it actually was.
I'm not sure I want to live that way. Before we start, did you add anything to explain a little bit what Uno is?
Yeah, for sure. So just to give you a bit of an idea. So myself, I've been at Uno Platform for about I think over 12 years now. Uno was not public at that time, so I've been working on the platform, and just to give an idea of what that is, Uno Platform is all about creating .NET apps that run pretty much everywhere. .NET runs, so we're talking mobile, web, desktop, embedded. So that includes iOS, Android, Catalyst, web with using WebAssembly, and desktop using Windows using WinApp SDK, but also desktop using our own custom rendering. Also using running on Linux as well as running on Mac OS. So it's a really large breadth of application targets, and being able to have your application available everywhere. So for the UI declaration, for the UI part, we're using XAML and or C#. So some of the people have been requesting in the community that we provide support for what we're calling now C# markup. You can see on the side here, being able to have some UI definition that runs that is declared using C#. That's one of the piece that we provide. And also, we're providing, as we're a platform, we're also providing lots of things that are not UI related. So interacting with things like geolocation, file open pickers, things like that are not necessarily UI. And I've been working on this for a very long time. We started not being public because people were asking us, "Do you want to do?" We were doing applications a very long time ago for a Windows Phone. And Silverlight at the time, and we were all C#, all .NET, and people were asking, can you do iOS and Android apps? And we were looking at that time what's available to do .NET applications, using .NET, and That was Mono. I think it was Mono Touch at the time, so it's a very long time ago. And we started developing something that looked like what Uno is today. So being able to take the code that we were running on Windows Phone at the time, and then port that out over to iOS and Android. And then one thing led to another. We started to be able to have that framework that started to get big, and then came 2018. And WebAssembly started to come up under the radar, and we added that target as well. And we said we can't keep all of that for ourselves. We have to open source that so that more people can experience what we're providing. And we decided to put the whole framework as the whole platform actually as an open source Apache 2 licensed code base that anyone can build and run and contribute to using GitHub. So that's been quite interesting. And since then, lots of things have been moving. We've got lots of contributors, lots of releases. We've added so many things and so many features that people are enjoying at that point, and we're going to be talking about a little bit after. And that's the elevator pitch of what Uno is.
This is great.
Yeah.
David was asking you, we're not going to accept the cookies on your own side there.
I can accept. So yeah, I see people have been saying they miss Windows Phone so much. Well, yes, yeah, that's history now. It's changed quite a bit, but the XAML's still there, and we're kicking on that side, and it's pretty nice to be able to do both XAML and C# at the same time. So I'm going to be showing some of it at that point.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So architecturally, Uno is something that looks a little bit like this. Uno is running, so on Windows using WinApp SDK. But it can run on Windows using WinApp SDK. So it's basically just using WinApp SDK as it is. There's no Uno in any way that shows or manipulates the UI. Then there's the web that shows that uses HTML and the DOM to show content. So it takes the XAML or the C# and then generates UI that can be shown in the browser. So that's something that I'm going to be showing you afterwards. Then we have Mac OS, iOS, and AppKit and other targets, where we basically were using the UI framework that's underneath to be able to show the content. So that means that we have, let's say, when you run on iOS and Android, we're using the underlying drawing primitives that the system provides, so that we have great performance, but also great interoperability with the current platform. So, for instance, we're not making our own version of the text box, so to enter text in in an application. And one of the good reasons for this is to making sure that all the accessibility features and interoperability features that the OS provides, we're not reinventing, in that context. So that makes it easier for people that have anything that goes with, particularly accessibility is one of the big things. So if you have any kind of screen readers and things like that on iOS and Android, it works all the way down. So that's for iOS and Android. And so same thing for when you're running for Mac Catalyst, you're going to get the same kind of experience there. You get your Mac OS application running. It's using the underlying primitives, but visually it looks the same. So across platforms, we're always rendering visually the same thing. It's just that the way to render things may differ across platforms. And it's all for having the best performance and best interoperability. Then the last one is Skia. And Skia is a target that we've just expanded when we released Uno Platform 5.2 a while back. And it allows to run everywhere we have support for the Skia target. So that means that when you're building an application that uses the Skia desktop target that we're providing, then we can run on Windows, on Linux, and Mac OS, and it's going to look the same. But on that context, we're going to be using the Skia Sharp and Skia underneath to render the content. And that content is is completely rendered by Uno itself. So that means that we have, for instance, our text box, we have anything that looks, everything that's drawn on screen is going to be rendered by Uno, which is different from iOS and Android, which are rendering, some parts are drawn by the underlying system. So that's for Skia. And what we've introduced in Uno 5.2 is the direct support for X11. So X window, that means that there's, it's super fast to start. Same thing for iOS, we're using Metal to do the rendering underneath, so it's super fast. And on Windows, the same thing, it's using, so single head, it runs everywhere. I'm going to be showing you that in a demo right after. So yeah, that's Uno.
You're mentioning you're rendering all the same thing, and David online was asking, so what are you generating? Is it HTML, YAML, or? It
is HTML. So we're taking so basically in the chain, we're doing XAML or C# using C# markup, and then we're transforming that into C#, where that's appropriate. And then at runtime, we're saying, well, if you have a grid or a text block or anything like that, then we're going to be generating some XAML. So let me give you an example. This is the NuGet Package Explorer. This is an application that we've developed with the help of the parts of the NuGet team to be able for you to see what's inside a NuGet package. So if you go to NuGet.info, you're going to get presented by this interface. And then you can see here that it pretty much looks like a desktop app, and you can basically just double click on a NuGet package, and then you're going to see the content of your NuGet package. Now, if I take a look at what's inside how the UI is rendered here, if you press F12, you're going to see that the UI is basically rendered using HTML. So if I click, for instance, on that particular text here, you can see that it's going to be spans and paragraphs, and you're going to get divs for grids and things like that. So we're basically having different ways to render the UI depending on the target that we're using, and this is one of the examples using the HTML DOM. So if you haven't used NuGet Package Explorer, super useful to use that. And because I'm on Linux, you can see that the UI is on Linux. You can use that and view your packages there. You can even open your local packages if you're creating some using the file picker here. That's pretty cool to be able to view your content and packages there.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think I remember when Claire was working with you guys on this,
Yes.
right? A while back. Cool. And David is asking if this project is open source.
It is open source. It is. If you go to the NuGet Package Explorer, NuGet Package Explorer, on GitHub, you're gonna find it right here, and you can go and modify the source, completely open source. The Uno side of it is here. You can go and contribute as you want. This is if you have a feature that's missing here, let us know. If you're feeling adventurous, you can make a PR to add some features there for sure.
From the top of your mind, any feature that was contribute from the community?
So one of the feature that people have been asking quite a bit is having custom feeds. So not NuGet.org. But the problem here is that there's always the CORS issues. So where if you want to go to a specific target, then there's CORS that can be causing issues. So it's always interesting to see. But yeah, that's the kind of things that could be of interest to implement. The other thing that people wanted is to edit NuGet packages. So one of the things that would be interesting, so the desktop app for NuGet Package Explorer has that feature, but the web doesn't have that yet.
Cool.
So enough talking, I'd say, and not showing much content. I'd say let's go try to create a new Uno platform app. So one of the things that you have to start doing first is go to the documentation that we have. So just click on the Getting Started, and we have a Visual Studio for Windows extensions, but there's also a VS Code extension that can be installed. And to get started, the best way to do is to follow our setup and all the things that we're providing here. And the one that we're going to be looking at for this particular demo is going to be the Linux one. And one of the tools that we're providing that was actually initiated by someone from the .NET team, Reneth, he worked on that, was the Maui check tool that we ported over to work for Uno. And you basically do a .NET tool, install Uno check, and that tool will basically set up your environment so that you have most of the tooling that's installed so that you can run your application properly. So when you run this particular tool, it will validate all sorts of things like install the OpenJDK, install the Android tooling, install .NET, install the .NET workloads. And you can see here that even if I'm on Linux, there's the support for running for Android. And that's particularly cool because it's not something that's particularly well advertised from the .NET team, but it's working pretty well. And I'm going to show you that just right after. So when you've run all this, you're pretty much set up to be able to run and have your application available. So it's the same thing when you're running on Windows or on Linux. It sets up everything so that you're ready to go and have basically nothing to install afterwards. So then once you're done, the second thing that you can do is either go into Visual Studio and use the wizard. But if you're on Linux or on Mac OS, you can use our online wizard, which is called new.platform.uno. And when you get there, you get presented with a nice UI that's developed with Uno. It's an Uno app that will allow you to create your project. So if I want to do my test project, let's go with my app. And then when I click start, I can go and select a lot of options that are coming from .NET, from .NET, but also from Uno platform. So because we're a platform, we're providing lots of things that are not just UI related, but are all sorts of additional functionalities and packages that enhance your way to get to an application that runs and starts faster, and to get you started faster. So we're supporting .NET 8 and preview .NET 9. That's pretty cool because it's iterating fast lately. We're also supporting all sorts of platforms, so you can choose whatever target you need. In this particular sample, what I'm going to do is just I'm going to be removing iOS, Windows, and macOS because I'm on Linux, and it's easier for the demo. But you can definitely select everything when you're on your own machine. Then you're going to be able to select MVUX or MVVM, and in here I'm going to be selecting MVVM just for now, just for the demo. MVUX and MVVM, I'm going to be talking about that. MVVM is pretty common. It's using the iNotify property change pattern, but MVUX is kind of a version that's on steroids and make immutable and observable things, and I'm going to talk about that afterwards in the demo. It's super cool to see, so give it a try. Then you have markup, so you can choose either XAML, the standard XAML that's been there for a very long time, or C# markup. That is a C# version of XAML, but that is more common for people that want to do development using C# and that not super familiar or don't like doing XAML, which people do exist. There are people that do exist that don't like XAML, and we're all with that, and we've provided a way to do C# instead. We're supporting all sorts of theming like Material and Fluent. So Fluent is the default from a WinUI application. So when you're building your app, you can choose either of those. You can change afterwards if you want. You can switch. You chose Fluent at the beginning. I want to go Material. That's up to you. We're supporting additional things with theming and DSP imports. And then we have extensions. Extensions is a lot of helpers and libraries that help creating your application faster. So for instance, we're setting up dependency injection, configuration for your application, having a refit set up for HTTP, localization, regions that make it for easier navigation to your app. That's really important when you have a larger application and you don't want to rely on the default frame that is provided by WinUI. You can configure your logging, all sorts of features as well. So we have the Uno toolkit that provides all sorts of building blocks like tab bar and helpers for list views, items repeater, and things like that. You also have .NET MAUI embedding that's available that allows to do to take .NET MAUI components and integrate them into an app. We have all sorts of samples that are available to show what that does. Applications that are built using Uno Wasm, also PWA, so you can install them and put them into your taskbar and click on them like it was in a other app. You also have authentication features, so you can choose whichever web authentication that you want. Then small other configuration like testing, CI pipelines that allow you to build your application so that you don't have to invent anything there. And once you're done checking all this, you can create your application by clicking on the create button at the top, or create, if you're on Visual Studio, just click create and we'll create your application directly inside Visual Studio. Now, what that does is a command line that you can basically take and put in the console here. So when I'm done, I can just paste that command line. You don't want to remember all of the options that are there, and that's why we create that wizard, so it gets easier for everyone. And once you're done, you can just let the .NET U tooling create the application. So if I go into the My App folder and I open that in code, I will get into Visual Studio Code that will look like this. Any questions so far?
I just love the wizard for CLI commands. I'm in love with that now. Like, because I've documented the CLI command for the .NET SDK for a long time, and like seeing like all the options and interconnections. That is really cool. There was a question before that. I know that there are Uno team members on the chat helping, but I think it would be cool to also talk about during the stream, which is what is the backend of Uno? Is it .NET MAUI? And since it has been in development for like 12 years, you said, so like there was no .NET MAUI at the time.
No.
So can you talk about a little bit about the backend and in terms of the interaction with .NET MAUI too?
For sure. Okay, so Uno, if I show that a little bit more, I think I had
the
just go back a little bit. Yes, the architecture diagram here. So what we're doing basically with regards to who's doing what in terms of the stack for Uno, MAUI is actually composed of two parts. There's the .NET MAUI, which is an evolution of Xamarin Forms. And which is basically sitting on top of what is called .NET for iOS, .NET for Android, .NET for Catalyst, and .NET for a few others. And then what we're doing is basically sitting at the same level as .NET MAUI and relying on what .NET is providing already. So .NET for iOS and Android is not MAUI; it's a separate piece. And what that means is that while we're not MAUI, we're also relying on everything that the .NET team is providing. So that means that if you're making an application for iOS, Android, or Catalyst, you're going to be benefiting from all the improvements that the .NET team has been doing for iOS and Android. So that means that anything that's been added recently for performance upgrades, for support for security features. There was a new manifest that was added recently for iOS apps that is supported by default as well. Anything that the .NET team is providing with the BCL and things like that, all of that is supported by default. If when you want to publish an application, so creating an APK, creating an AAB, creating all sorts of packaging environments and things like that, code signing and things, this is all provided by .NET. We're not inventing anything. And that's pretty cool because we're basically standing on the shoulder of a giant because we're not inventing that part. We're just sitting on top of it and reusing everything that the .NET team is providing. Now, there's a link between MAUI and Uno, and that link is when we want to include components that are coming from the MAUI ecosystem inside of an Uno app, and that is particularly interesting. It's called the MAUI embedding, and what we're doing is basically bootstrapping parts of MAUI that allow to take components that are coming from MAUI ecosystem. For instance, if you want to do Telerik, or if you want to do Sync Fusion components and things like that, those components exist as Maui components, and you can integrate them into an Uno app. But that's pretty much the only link that exists between Maui and Uno at that level.
People are having a lot of chit chat about your distro Linux version and.
I was waiting for that question. Okay, so
yeah, there are a lot of viewers, particularly over on the Twitch side of the stream, commenting on trying to figure out what Linux distribution this is. And I said, I don't recognize it. I use Ubuntu, but yeah, this is Jerome is definitely using Linux here.
It is Linux. Okay, so the environment is a bit exotic in a sense. What you're seeing is actually a Linux distro that's running inside of a Docker container, which is a version of our desktop Linux server. I think it's called that, if I haven't searched that. So this is Linux server R desktop. This is what I run. So I've installed this in a Docker container. That Docker container is running inside WSL. And WSL is, of course, running on Windows. So if I have a Windows machine running behind, so I'm connecting to that Linux distro, which is actually KDE. So in that context, so I've basically set it up using the KDE version. I think it's this is the one. So Ubuntu KDE. So that's why I'm running in that environment, and this is super interesting for me because it's all sorts of manipulations that I can do to do things like that. And the cool thing is that I can do also Android. I can run Android in that context. So this is a Docker container that runs an Android emulator. It's emulated from WSL, which also is emulated. So it's kind of multiple layers of virtualization, but it runs pretty well. So that is pretty cool. And so there are a few things that need to be adjusted, and probably going to be opening issues there. Like, for instance, scaling is not super well supported. That's why if you're running on a 4K screen, it may look a bit small, but that's what it is. So that's my current Linux distro. This is KDE Ubuntu.
Awesome. And I love to see, I think like most of our viewers know already that .NET runs on Linux and Mac, but it's always a good reminder that to show off the other OSs running. And I think we can go back to your demo so that we can.
Yes. So this was my demo. So I created so I'm just going to show very quickly the structure of an application. So this is VS Code. This is running using VS Code. We're running using a Uno platform extension. This Uno platform extension relies on C# devkit. So that means that all the experience that you have using C# devkit, with the IntelliSense, and if you have the licensing, you can do all sorts of things with the support for going to, let's say, let me show you some of it. For instance, you have IntelliSense here. You even have I don't remember the code lens, I think it's called. That's going to show up like this. So all that's coming from C# devkit, and we're providing on top two things. We're providing XAML IntelliSense. So this is the one that you're seeing. So for instance, if you want to add a something like oh, it didn't load in that context. Let me retry just quickly, because I probably just had that. Oh yeah, I had to select that's one thing that I forget when I load the project. You have to select the project. So this is the first project to select. Once you've done that, then at that point the Uno platform IntelliSense is going to kick in and provide all sorts of accessibility features. So you can see here, you have access to events, you have access to all the properties that are provided by Uno. So for instance, if I wanted to do visibility, for instance, I could have the support for the visibility here. So for some reason, it's not providing the right content. So I'll be taking a look at for sure. Probably could be a Linux issue. But so we're providing all of that, support for XBind, support for XMLNS and things like that. So at the top, you can manipulate all of this. And the applications are also a single project now. So we're supporting all targets at once in here, because I created the application using Android desktop and web. I'm missing just iOS and Mac Analyst at the top. But it's a simple file that you have access to. Allows to modify the application title, application ID. You have the Uno features that are available here. So all that allows you to select everything that Uno has to offer without having to include any sort of NuGet packages or everything that makes it very complex. So one of the thing that's very important is that it looks pretty much like in a standard app where you can include all sorts of features without having to reference NuGet packages. So it makes it very easy to work with. So that's pretty much what an application looks like. I'll be going. Oh, and there's the platform folder where you have all sorts of platform specific files that you can modify when you want to do Android specific or desktop specific and things like that. So that's the base for an Uno app. Now I'm going to be showing you what's a few other things that are very interesting. It's a smaller demo that we're doing regularly. Let me. I think it's that one. There you go. So what we do generally is show the application using a hot reload. And what we want to have is people being able to start their app and never stop it, pretty much. And that's your end goal. Being able to show everything at once, and people just do their own development, their full development in their application without having to change anything, stop or restart the app, which can be take a while. So using our own hot reload, and we think we have the most advanced hot reload in that space, and it works with C# markup as well as XAML, so you can do both. And you can see that I've just modified that particular line, and it changed instantly. I'm going to be showing you the demo that we have, which is creating a simple calculator. So I'm going to be commenting out that particular piece and show you what that is with C# markup. So I'm just going to be showing you a small piece. So if we do uncomment all those sections here, and I do save, we're going to see that my content changes immediately. So what I did is just change for a new UI that has a few resources, a bit of background, a data context that I'm going to be changing afterwards, just to show you what that is. And you can specify data context in a typed way using C# markup. That's pretty cool, because that means that you can just benefit from everything that C# has to offer with IntelliSense. You can create a border. That one is a default border, and that's the color that you see at the bottom. You can see that we have support for safe area. That's very useful for mobile devices when you have rounded corners or notches at the top that are particularly interesting. And then you can create a child with a grid. Then you can set the maximum width, height. You can set all sorts of children here. So if I, for instance, comment a line, not the right mapping. If I comment out that line, you can see that the content is just moved away. So what I'll be doing now is adding new pieces of that particular UI one by one, so that they show a full UI. So if I comment this part out, I'm going to be creating all sorts of UI. So in here, I've just created this is a function that will create a button, and you can see that it's bound using commands. It has command parameters. It has font size, height. It has styles, and we're going to be reusing this. And if you're used to do XAML, this pretty much looks like a template. If you're pretty familiar with this. And we're not doing any kind of templating here. We're just repeating, we're calling the button multiple times. So I'm going to be commenting more of that. This is the button, a primary button, same thing. We have secondary buttons. I'm going to be commenting the layout, the full layout. So the full layout is here. And you can see that we're basically saying, well, the first row is secondary buttons, primary buttons, and things like that. And when I press save, my UI just appears immediately. And that's pretty cool to see, because when you want to adjust a few things, like let's say, for instance, I don't like the size of a keypad, so the main button. I think it's too small, for instance, my primary button. And I want to change the font size to be 64 instead. That's bigger buttons, and it's easier to do because a hot reload is applied immediately and shows up pretty quickly.
It's very fast. The change are very fast.
Yeah, they're super fast. The .NET team and the C# compiler team have been making some major advancements there. They're doing iterative diffing of the C# and sending that to the running app. It's super fast, super useful, and we're enhancing scenarios. And even the .NET team is adding new scenarios around hot reload. It's super interesting. So you can see here that I have my UI that shows up, and I'm going to be changing the header and the output at the top so that it shows properly. So I'm going to be just commenting out the false headers that I had here, and I'm going to be putting the right header and output at the bottom. Okay, so I have a button at the top that doesn't do anything for now, and my calculator doesn't do anything. Now, what I want to do is change my main page so that I can use the calculator that is created here, but using a new main model. So the calculator is something they provide as part of our tutorials. You can just copy and paste and go take a look. What's important is that it's a record, so it's fully immutable. So every time you make a change to the calculator or make a computation, we're creating a newer version of the calculator with its new state. So that's pretty cool. But I won't go into that detail. It's too large for that particular demo. But what I want to have is a new main model. So that main model is using MVUX, and it's our enhanced version of everything that is iNotify property change and iNotify collection chain and things like that. So you can see here that there's nothing available of that sort here. There's no iNotify property change that's created or anything, but we're using something that's called a state. A state is something that you can bind to, and basically the UI is going to be binding to something that's called isDark and the calculator here. And you can see that you can set the default state of isDark here. And when you're going to be clicking that button, it was going to change from dark to because it's going to be a two-way binding to isDark. It's going to be changing the theming afterwards. So now that I've done my model here with the command here, that when I click every button here, it's going to be showing, it's going to be updating my content. I can go back to my main page and then change my model that I had that was temporary here, the temp data context. And I'm going to be using a generated version of my main model here. So we're using all sorts of short duration to make your life easier. And I'm going to be changing that temp data context to be a bindable main model, which is a class that's automatically generated from the main model here. So when I change that and I press save, then at that point, my calculator instantly becomes active and can be doing computations. And that's super cool because, I haven't changed anything. I've just updated my pages here, changed my model, and it just works immediately and instantly without having to restart the application. I kept my state, and it's updating properly. Now, the last thing I want to show is the fact that our button at the top here is not working. And what we can do is use our service that we're providing. So we have a small service that you can bind to that provides the current theme of the application, and it uses the current theme of the OS as needed, but also it's something that you can toggle there. And what we're going to do is bind the isDark to the theme service isDark for its original state, and then every time there's going to be a change in the button here, we're going to set the theme of the overall app so that it shows in the right theme. So if I go back to my main page, I have an error now because I added a new parameter. And we're going to be using the get theme service, which is an extension provided by the Uno toolkit that will allow us to go and update our UI. So I'm not sure if I've saved the file, so I need to save the model as well. And once I'm done, once it's saved, then when both files saved, then the UI changes and you can do theming of your calculator using using that button here. And Uno supports light dark theming by default. And when you create an app, it will follow the theming of your app. So make sure that you use the right resources to do proper binding to the colors of the theme. So that's one of the demos that we have with regards to showing all sorts of cool things with hot reload. Of course, the hot reload works on multiple platforms. It works on the web. Very quickly, I'm just briefly going to show you that. If you go to the web and change the debugger here, and then you start the app, it may take a few seconds to build because it uses it may be, I don't think I have, I think I've built it once, but we should be good. Yeah, we should be good with that. So when you're starting an app like this, it will create a small website that contains all the WebAssembly stuff that you need, and the application is going to start and will give you the right content, and you're going to be able to debug your application using the same kind of theming things that are provided as part of Uno platform. And and hot reload works as well here. Let me just quickly do that. If I have the file opened, let's say we wanted to change the UI, and then the numbers are too big, so let's put them a bit smaller, and it's going to take a few seconds for the first startup, and then it will change and go back to a smaller font size for your app. So that's for the first demo.
This is really cool. One thing that you're not showing here, I'm just curious, is what do you use for localization? Is it like PO or resx files, or?
So this is resw files. Well, it's actually a mix of both. Depending on localization, you can do resx if you want to localize using the standard resx and resource generation that happens from embedded files. You can do it using resx's. If you want to do localization using the UI, there's something that's called XUID that uses resw files. So resw files are resx's, but without any that contain only text, and something that you can use to do localization very quickly. If it's pretty much the same thing as what it is the same thing as what WinUI does when you're doing localization. So that's why actually this is actually a very good segue. The Uno calculator is a port that we did of the Windows calculator a while back, and that application is localized in 76 languages, if I remember correctly. So the original one has all those localizations. So if you run that application in your language, it's going to be showing it's going to show up using your own language, even if it's a foreign language that most are not in the EMEA region, and it's available on iOS, Linux, Android, things like that, and people have been actually using that calculator on their own language on the iPad, because the iPad doesn't have a good calculator. So it's pretty cool to see.
And the platform, from what I'm sorry, and the platform, from what I understand, is free to use, right? Like, so
it is.
Sasha's talking about maybe a paid support model, but like the platform, you can use it for free and embed it into your projects.
Absolutely. Uno platform is completely free. It's free and open source. You can make modifications to it. You can do all sorts of changing. We're of course accepting any kind of contributions that you'd be interested in. But yeah, it's there's nothing that prevents you from using Uno platform anywhere, including embedded devices and things like that. I saw there was a question: how does Uno make money? We're offering professional services using the Red Hat model. So basically, you can contact us and then basically influence the backlog for your particular issues and features that you want included. We're an implementation of WinUI, so we haven't implemented all of WinUI, of course. We've implemented the largest pieces that people use commonly, but it may be that you want a specific piece of WinUI that's not available, and then you can contact us for providing that. And I think Sasha, if he hasn't posted that already, I think we have a blog post that explains all of those, all of what we do to make ourselves sustainable.
That's very interesting. We had one question from the audience was asking, what's the most important feature that distinguishes Uno from Avalonia? I don't know Avalonia, but I guess many. It's a popular. I'm just asking because I think
Yes.
you're in the same league.
Of course. So I mean, definitely, it's all about having the ecosystem for .NET have the greatest kind of options that are available. Uno is providing advanced hot reload. It's providing C# markup out of the box. We're providing integration with Figma, with our tooling for Figma, so you can take your designs that are coming from Figma and put that into your application without to have a faster loop for design handoff and things like that. We have a very large code base. We're sitting on top of .NET for all sorts of features that are provided specifically for Uno, and of course we're relying on the source from UI. So that means that super large controls like the calendar date picker, time picker, things like that, and all the things that may come in the future will be compatible with Uno. So that means that we're basically taking the second arm, second shoulder of the giant, which is the .NET on the one side and WinUI on the other. And that means that if you're on the WinUI side and XAML and WPF, you can move to Uno. And we're providing the great support there for your development needs.
Love it. Yeah. And now you need to rename your hot reload for hot reload.
Hot reload. There you go. Yes, we'll consider that.
That's David, by the way.
That's great. So I have a smaller other demo that I can show you. Actually, while it's building, I think I can probably just show it. I'm going to be just showing Android quickly. If it wants to, and I'm going to switch to another one until it deploys. So it's very important that we can do development on Linux using Android, and that's particularly interesting because some of us some of the people don't want to use either Mac OS or Linux and or Windows, and then it's possible to do that in here. And so let me just press F5 for here, and then we're going to go to a separate demo. My emulator is the standard one for Android. You can just start it up using the standard tooling that comes from Google, and it would run the same way. So it's actually pretty fast. If I it's even if it's virtualized 2 layers down, visually it looks great, and it's even working properly using the remote desktop tooling that I do have installed here. So that's pretty nice to see. So let me see if it takes a bit more time. Otherwise, I'm going to jump to the other one. And yeah, it's taking a bit too much time. So let's go quickly to another one. I have a smaller charts demo that I wanted to show you. It's a smaller demo that we have. I think I've switched. Oh, there you go. It moved back in the front. So this is the same calculator that I had. That I showed you a bit before, but that this time it's running on Linux. So this is running on the Android emulator on Linux. And one thing that I could do is just go and maybe put a breakpoint here, for instance, and I can just click a button, and you will see that I'm going to have a very soon, I guess. Maybe it's downloading a few sources. It should be breaking very soon. No, it doesn't break. Okay, so that could be something. So it looks like it's broken somewhere, but it doesn't show. Maybe it's in the demo. No. Okay, so much for that one. I'm not sure exactly why. No, it didn't break. Okay, so that's fine. So it should have broken, but it didn't this time. So I'll be taking a look again why it doesn't happen. Maybe it's another piece of development that doesn't work. But once that's fixed, it's something that you can do and develop your application, run your application on the emulator, and using Linux all the way. That's pretty cool. So the other demo that I wanted to show is the support for charts, and it's something that's pretty visual. People are asking about that, very often. And this is a smaller demo that I have that is using C# markup here as well. And let me actually start that demo. I'm using Android. Let me go for desktop again and using desktop. And for that particular demo, we're using as live charts. And this is a C# based version of live charts that allows to show fancy charts like this. You can see that if you change the numbers here, it's going to be doing all sorts of cool things. It's pretty visual. I like this demo because it's showing that the ecosystem is here. You have live charts that's doing super cool charting, and you can even interact with the chart here. We have Maps UI that's providing mapping for Linux and Android and the other platforms. That's pretty cool to see live charts running here. And so it's the same thing. It's using C# markup. It's using MVUX to show the content. I'm not going to dive into the pieces here, but the important part is that we're generating the extensions that need to be available for an application, for a library that's not compatible by default using C# markup. But you can put that attribute here at the top for C# markup, and it will automatically generate all the extension methods that you can have to get your custom library to run with C# markup. So this is something that Uno is generating, the series here, that is compatible directly with your application. So that means that if you have your own library, you're going to be able to get to C# markup very quickly at that point. So if you want to have documentation for this, we have lots of documentation to be able to generate your own C# markup extension for your own libraries if they're not compatible with C# markup. One of the other things that we support, and that's the other demo that's interesting, is platform-specific code. So you can see here in the application that's running that it's running on Skia, but that means that the content here that's supposed to be running on Wasm is not there, but it's also compatible with hot reload. So if I rerun the application, you can see that I have a 2 that's available now that I've changed that. If I run the same application on, let's say, everything else on Android or anything else, I'm going to get the custom code that's running for that platform. It's super important because when you're in an environment, you may be using a custom piece of code that's using the platform underneath, and that's something that you will want to do to use specific platforms. Of course, that particular piece of code runs on the web. That's super cool to see that it's possible to do. I see that Alberto is here. He's the maintainer of live charts, and it's super cool to have support for that kind of support from the community. And it's running, of course, everywhere. That's super nice to see. Oh, I didn't select the right target. Hang on. I think I selected the desktop. I wanted to have the web instead. And so that's pretty much all the demos. And there are a few other things that if people have other questions. We have an application that's called the Uno Gallery also. There you go. So that's there. So that's live charts running on the web. And you can see here that we have the on Wasm. That's was conditional code that's available as well. So it's running super fast using accelerated graphics. So this is using OpenGL in the back. So it's super fast. So always glad to see Skia running and that kind of context. So yeah, so that's the charts demo. And if you want to experience a few things with Uno, testing components, you can see all the components that, or some of the components that Uno is providing. If you want to check your checkboxes and see how they behave across platforms. Like for instance, you want to do color picking, things like that. All sorts of tests that you can do. You can go and try them out in the Uno gallery. And the last one I want to show you is the playground. If you want to test out your own code, modifying your own XAML, then you can use this particular platform playground. and then you can go and change things like this. So for instance, maybe let's take another one. If you want to test out date and time, you can test your date pickers in that context and see how they behave. You can modify, let's say I want to change the content and have my calendar view, modify it quickly and test it out without having to install anything. It's super nice to be able to do the testing directly in the web. So so that's it for the demo. So if there's anything that other people want to see, any question, I haven't followed all the questions. There are quite a bit of discussions there. Okay, so what are the options for image processing? Doing simple ops with images, or is it using Skia Sharp? So there are a few that are available. So Skia is something that you can use, obviously, depending on targets. So it all depends on the platform. So if you want to use the largest targets in terms of support, Skia Sharp is definitely the library to use. It has all sorts of decoding and things like that. Decoding and coding that are available, and you can do shaders and all sorts of manipulations. It's super nice to see. I think there's Image Sharp also that runs across platforms. I'm not too sure about the support for WebAssembly, depending on if you're using AOT or others. So you may want to take a look at that library as well.
And I think the last question we're going to cover, because we're coming out of time, is it possible to use native Swift packages for iOS? And is there docs?
So I know that Microsoft is working on that for native Swift packages. I think there's a proposal for an API that will support Swift. I don't have that by hand. Let me check quickly. I think it's on GitHub at Xamarin iOS or Xamarin Mac iOS. I think Mac iOS. And I think there's something about Swift somewhere in there. If you search for Swift, there's probably a discussion. Yeah, there's that particular Swift, but I don't remember. I think some of the people that are on the stream may be able to find that one out. But I know Microsoft's working on it to be able to provide support for Swift, because it's Apple is moving to Swift very quickly, so that will be important to have. So I don't know the top of my head, but definitely take a look at the Xamarin Mac iOS repository for more up-to-date details.
Awesome. All right. And I'm putting the link down below for if you want to join as a guest, like Jerome here has come to present the awesome demos for the Uno platform. It was really great. I loved the presentation, so thank you.
Thank you very much. It's always fun to show all of that, and bigger awareness to people that may not have seen us since then.
Great. So we don't have any episode planned for next week, correct?
It's build week, so we're taking the week off.
Excellent.
And then Memorial Day, so we're back on June.
Okay.
Well, everybody, see you back in June. Thank you again, Jerome. And
of course, thank you
all for watching.